On this Thanksgiving evening, 2023. And this is an evening on which we celebrate probably America's most unique and America's most important civic holiday, certainly, and one that has just an unbelievable tradition and gives us all an opportunity to be thankful for the great blessings that we have. It all began officially or semi officially in 1789 with the first president, George Washington, declaring a day of thanksgiving for our Constitution and for the success of our revolution, which I think is still an appropriate reason for Thanksgiving, maybe even more appropriate in the age in which we live in right now, where that Constitution has been put under its most serious attack since since the beginning. I haven't seen an administration or a regime frontally attack and burn up and destroy the Constitution as much as the present regime of thugs in Washington. So we should be thankful that we have it and that we can still rely on it. And although it isn't respected in many places because of political interference, it still prevails and it will prevail ultimately. Uh, so it was in 1789 that George Washington took the last Thursday in November and put it aside as a day of Thanksgiving. Now, that didn't kind of catch on. There were Thanksgiving celebrations of all different types from then until in 1863, Abraham Lincoln, got some pretty good presidents here doing this, right? Abraham Lincoln made it an official day of Thanksgiving based on Washington tradition that hadn't really become a tradition. And it was, of course, needed at that time. It was in the midst of the Civil War, and he also kept it as the last Thursday, the fourth Thursday in November. It remained that way until Theodore Roosevelt in 1903 changed it. Same Thanksgiving, fourth Thursday of the month, rather than the third Thursday, the last Thursday in November. And then in 1939, his cousin Franklin Delano Roosevelt switched it back Thursday to create more holiday shopping during the Depression. A lot of anger about that, a lot of turmoil about it. And in 1941, which was about the time of the war, right? He switched it back to the fourth Thursday in November, and of course, Pearl Harbor came right after that designation of that Thursday, the fourth Thursday in November. And since then, it has always been the fourth Thursday. And of course, it's the same holiday. It's a holiday to thank God for what we have been giving in this great and wonderful land, which, for all of its negatives, which exist because we're human, but are far less than any other land in the history of the world, we are very, very thankful. And there should be no doubt about what I just said, since the problem that we face right now, massive migration to this country, is an issue that's existed in a much healthier way. And that is the desire of people to come to America, overshadows the desire of people to go anywhere in the history of the world. This idea of migration to the United States, although practiced in a much healthier way in the past, is the reason for the great success of America. So when we say, well, how do you prove you're the greatest country in the history of the world? Because we're the country that people have voted for with their feet more than any country in the history of the world. Oh, there are many other ways to do it, but if you have a problem with this being the greatest country in the history of the world, I don't know. I don't want to send anybody out of the United States. If you could find another country, I mean, if you think this one is so bad that you protest against it and you call it names and you talk about systemic racism, which means everybody's a racist. You talk about white privilege and all this other stuff. Um, I don't know. There are a lot of other places to live that aren't as crowded. So I just sit back on a day like today and just have a little humility and say you're the luckiest person on earth to be here. I don't care what your problems are. I got them. You got them. We all have them. I don't care what deficiencies you see in this country. This is it, babes. It doesn't get better than this. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be an American. And please, God, give me the strength to be able to do what my forebears did and to pass this country on stronger and better than it was given to me, because right now we're failing in that regard, but we're going to change that. So Thanksgiving was celebrated, of course, with many, many things that happened. One of which, of course, is very dear to me because it's been part of my life since I was a child, and including as mayor of New York, having been in it in a unbelievable torrential downpour in which I was sure I was going to get pneumonia, or Joe Torre was, because we were in it together. And it rained from the beginning of the parade until the end of the parade, and it was a cold rain. And when it was over, I think we had to go into drying machines. But I have great memories of it. And here's a little snippet from the great parade that, of course, has been the subject of the movie, the wonderful movie Miracle on 34th Street. This is the Macy's Thanksgiving.
It was incredible to see you do that. That is a vantage point that you don't often get to see, and it's just beautiful. As we're coming down 34th Street, this is Parade Central right here. We've got people all along. People have been here since, I don't know, before the sun came up.
Right. I mean, we got here early in the morning. People are lining the route pre-dawn, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and they're here now. They've been waiting for this moment, and Tom is rolling.
Oh, I think he just winked at you, Hoda.
Couldn't have been too windy today. Otherwise, those balloons would not have been up that high. I remember those regulations really well because we had to change them several times about just how high the balloons could be based on the wind. We never had to cancel one. We had a death of someone who got hit. Oh, my goodness. I think, no. We had a death before I don't know if we had a death while I was mayor. We had a very serious accident in which a woman was unconscious for a long period of time. And by Christmas time, she had recovered. And it was one of those, 34th Street miracles. But we changed the lighting system at that point. It starts up at, if you know Manhattan at all, and if you don't know Manhattan, please get to know it. I know people think it's very dangerous to go there and all this other stuff. And look, it is more dangerous than it was a couple of years ago, but I'm going to tell you, it's less dangerous. I don't know. Pick a city, Ted. Pick a competitive city to New York. If you wouldn't go to New York, where would you go? Washington, D.C.?
Look.
Much greater chance of being the victim of a crime. Pick another city. Come on.
L.A.
Oh, no comparison. We're much safer.
Miami.
Oh, my goodness. Forget it.
Chicago, the Windy City.
Oh, it's the difference between being a weekend of wartime death rates and, unfortunately, higher death rates than we used to have, but nothing like, for example, Philadelphia.
Philly,
which is a much more dangerous
city. The city of brotherly love.
Much more dangerous. 2 years ago, it set records. Now, we have only had our Bragg has only been there for 2 years. The Soros prosecutor has been in Philadelphia for 7. So he's been able to completely ruin the place. You give Bragg a couple more years and who knows? So why don't you come before he has a few more years letting criminals go free so they can kill you? But right now, it's safer than most places. It's not exactly headed in the right direction, but if you're going to go to an American city, you tell me the one that's safer. I don't know. I'm sure there is one, but it beats San Francisco, which is now a Chinese city, had been an American city until Xi went there and everybody held the red Chinese flag by order of Governor Xi Jin Newsom. That's his new name, Xi Jin Newsom. He became Xi Jin Newsom when he went and kissed Xi Jinping's ring as a possible Democratic candidate. He had to get the approval of what appears to be the real head of the Biden Democratic Party, the guy who's made the biggest contributions to Biden, the Red Chinese Party. But the parade is worth coming to see, and it is always very well policed. And you saw a little bit of it there with that great float. The night before, if you're going to come and do it next year, we'll talk about it next year because it'll be after the election, and hopefully America will get an election in which we can have a Declaration of Independence. We can have our freedom, or at least I can have my freedom back. I don't have freedom right now. I'm not allowed to practice law, and I got to check with my parole officer. Isn't that unbelievable? That's what Biden has done to me, because I'm the one who dug up the crimes on him. You know that? You know, I'm the one who dug up the crimes originally. Nobody else. I say that with great pride and an unbelievable pride as an American. I think my the vows that I made and the oaths that I took to try to make my country and my city better than I was given to me, I fulfilled when I brought out the crimes of the most crooked president in American history. Now let's see what people are going to do about it. So the parade came off beautifully today, thank God. A couple of new balloons, some of the great old balloons, and the kids had a great time. Only problem is with this inflation, it was the highest priced Thanksgiving either ever or second most. The inflation rate was astronomical. It was 25% higher than in 2019, and the second most expensive in the last 38 years. Thank you, whatever you are in the White House, or whoever is really running it, if it's you or Obama or some group of people from China. I don't know who's running it. The parade you gave Xi in San Francisco sure looked like this place is being run by China. I have never seen an American city with so many communist flags, which now probably indicates that San Francisco is not only sarcastically called the People's Republic of San Francisco. The flag kind of indicates that it really is the People's Republic of San Francisco under a person that Biden thinks would make a good substitute for him, which is Comrade Newsom. So please remember all these things. It's important if you'd like this country passed on to your children better than it is now. Well, a ceasefire has been put off now several times. It was put off yesterday. It was put off today. It was supposed to happen originally last night. It was supposed to happen tonight. Now it's going to happen theoretically at 7 tomorrow morning. And 50 Israelis, I think all women and children, I think, and 150 Palestinians are being released over a 4-day period. So the ceasefire begins at 7, as the minister from Qatar just announced. Exactly why the minister for Qatar is announcing this is beyond me. I don't know why they have such a big role in this, since they are protecting 4 or 5 of the major murderers that run Hamas. Yes, murderers. That is what they are. They were declared terrorists long before this happened, and they have murdered our people, meaning they've murdered Americans. So when you protest for them, remember you're protesting for people who murdered our brothers and sisters. And who the hell do you think you are doing that? Snot-nosed kids, Ivy League jerks. They killed Americans. All these people have killed Americans. And they were. Do you read history? No, of course not. So ceasefire begins at 7 tomorrow, unless something goes wrong. It's been put off twice already. 13 at 4 p.m. I don't know why it begins at 7, but at 4 p.m., 13 Israelis will be released. They are all women and children, and they are members of families. In other words, family groups are going to be released, 2 or 3, to amount to 13. There will be 50 released over the course of 4 days, and 150 Palestinians. A sub-moron reporter attacked the Israeli public relations guy on one of the communist networks, CNN or whatever, and said something like, doesn't the fact that it's 50 Israelis for 150 Palestinians show that you disrespect the lives of Palestinians? Well, the guy just said, I don't, I'm taken aback by that because I don't get it. I mean, it would seem to me just the opposite, doesn't it? That Israel respects human life quite a bit more because it's willing to do anything to save lives. But it gives you an idea of how brainwashed they are. Then Christine Amanpopoulou, whatever her name is, Amanpopi? Papadarapu. But you can't make fun of her name. That's terrible that I did that. Didn't they make fun of Ramaswamy's name? Yeah, they did. So,
exactly.
Yeah. All right, yeah. So there you go. So come and get me. Come and get me, Amanpopi. Amanpopi was questioning the former prime minister of Israel, who is a left-wing guy, and he's the guy who actually presided over and has had a hard time living it down, although I like him very much, Ehud Barak. He's the one who presided over Clinton's willingness to sell out Israel to his friend with whom he had some kind of a love affair. I mean this in a theoretical sense, Arafat, and probably ruined Middle East peace for 50 years in the way he enshrined Arafat and the PLO and the Palestinians and created the moral equivalency between Palestine and Israel, which is now dominates Europe. Or how about moral superiority? But in any event, Barack, although he made a terrible mistake with Clinton, is a very patriotic Israeli. The man was a war hero, and I know him, and I disagree with him politically, but I have enormous respect for his courage and for his dedication to his country. Well, Amanpopi was trying, in the worst way that she could, to get him to say that the government, the present government, is lying about the Al-Shifa hospital, and that it really isn't a center for Hamas activities, and the Israelis have presented no such proof. Now, I have seen about 50 pictures of soldiers being taken out of there, arms being taken out of there, medical equipment with guns behind it and machine guns behind it, very large, long, what appear to be entrances to the tunnel, because it's a center point for the tunnel. And I have also seen what appear to be rooms that would be used if you had a Hamas center there. So she was trying to get him to say, but they've shown no proof of the. Well, he said, I think I have seen proof, but Christiane, whatever her name is, they're obviously a friend because they're both they're both lefties. And she thought she was going to get him to turn on his country. She forgets, unlike our Democrats who are unpatriotic, the Israelis, when they're left, aren't unpatriotic. They don't turn on their country the way the Democrats turn on us. And for example, BOW, for Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist anti-American organization, they don't do that, the Israelis. They're like the old-fashioned Democrats who were loyal to the United States and the old-fashioned Republicans. So he just fought her right back. And he said, well, it doesn't really matter because we built it. I know it's there because we built it. And she said, how could you have built it? And he said, well, we controlled the place for the longest time. And not only did we build it, we know it's there. And she said, how do you know it's there? And he looked at her like, well, as the prime minister, I was a general in the army, and we know we know everything that's in Gaza. Like, we got pictures of it, idiot. And then he went on to say how careful the army has been in an extraordinary way in trying to preserve the lives of Palestinians, and how reckless the Palestinians have been with the lives of their people. She quickly ended the interview. These people are, her name is Amanpour. People hate this country, and they hate Israel. I mean, that was just completely trying to trap him into saying something that isn't true, that unless she's really fogged up with all this, I mean, she goes to a lot of these jet set parties, and who knows what happens to your brain when you go to those. And she's been a left idiot for a long time. But this was really pathetic. And the guy was so much better than her. I mean, she assumed because he's on her side ideologically, he's a liar like she is, and would be willing to betray his country like she would in a second. But no, not him. He said to her, no country has gone as far as we have to preserve the lives of innocent people, and nobody's done as much to kill them as Palestinians. And it isn't just Hamas, it's Palestine. The Palestinian people may not be all members of Hamas, but they agree with the essential principle: destroy the Jews. They're taught it from the day they go to school. Read the article by a Palestinian in this week's Epic Times. Explains how he was brought up and what they're taught from the day they go to school and what happens to them if they disagree. So we'll see what happens with the ceasefire. The reporter who asked the dumb question about Israel doesn't respect Palestinian lives because they're giving up 150 to get 50 Israelis back is someone called Elon Levy. Kay Burley, and she was interviewing Elon Levy. So let's remember Kay Burley. She's another, uneducated, somewhat, I guess, illiterate reporter. And Amin Poupi has been that for a long, long time. A jet set, hopeful, cocktail party, pretend intellectual. So the bridge explosion really was quite something, wasn't it? I mean, no criticism at all of anyone overplaying it. If you didn't overplay it, I'd be very worried, because given those facts, you better get ready for a major attack. In other words, if right now we hear that there's an explosion on the Brooklyn Bridge or this bridge or that bridge, we better start getting ready. And then if it isn't so, we pull back. Much better than doing what Obama did at Benghazi, which is to assume that he couldn't help and not send anybody there. Worst explanation in the history of emergency management I ever heard. Well, we couldn't get there in time. Well, of course, you don't know that when you first find out about it, because when you find out they took hostages, you don't know it's going to be 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, a day, 2 days, 3 days, a year and a half. So the minute you hear they took hostages, you send all your resources there to try to save them. You don't hold them back because, I don't know, you don't care that much about their lives, I guess. They sure got those people killed, didn't they? The Prince Obama and Email Smith. She was more interested in making sure nobody saw her personal emails, I think. So the bridge explosion was a great warning to us, I think, to be ready. Uh, Ted, I think, is showing some of the pictures of it. Are you, Ted? Including the extraordinary one of the car going aerial. Did you show that one?
Doing it right now.
I mean, this is extraordinary what happened here. I think this is after it went through the checkpoint. I believe it is. I mean, we don't know since they're both dead and why they were going so fast. You say 100 miles an hour.
Crash at the Rainbow Bridge. The footage
this is after.
Online showing what's reportedly
There's the car now. The car is the white one in the back. 3 over, 1, 2, the third toll booth, and basically entering the toll booth. There's a car in front, and it's entering the toll booth.
100 miles per hour.
Now we
launching
see
into the air at a high rate of speed
here,
at the U.S.-Canada crossing.
I've never seen anything like this.
We'll get to the right one in a moment. That's the car in front of it. And then in back of it is the white car. And we'll have to look for it and find it. But it's worth getting. It's worth looking at and seeing if you haven't seen it, because once you see it, you will say to yourself, yeah, it looks like this is not a terrorist situation, because there seems to be no point in doing this. This looks like something that went wrong between the husband and wife, argument or drugs or drinking or who knows what. But someone doesn't come out of a area like that who's intent on doing a terrorist act somewhere and drive that way. So we'll have to find out what this is. It's going to take a while, but there it is in the air. That's a kind of a mid-air shot. It's extraordinary. And it could easily have fooled any of these people. So we'll take a short break. And when we come back, we'll finish this up and we'll move on to some of the other things that happened today and that we've got to get ready for in the week and the holidays and in the year coming up. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Welcome back to America's Mayor Live on Thanksgiving 2023. And Ted, have you been able to locate that one? The shot that shows it going up in the air? I thought I saw it. I saw it down there. It said airborne.
Watch the top of your screen here. Well, let me.
Oh, there it is. This is it. You had it. I remember it. You see the white car? Keep watching that white car at the very back of the screen. Just keep watching that white car. Watch that white car. Watch it. Why don't you come around now? Watch it hit the side. Look at it take off. Unreal. Unreal. Look at that. Very hard to even accept the physics of it. You know, that the barrier there was high enough to lift it that high in the air, which does indicate that if it wasn't doing 100 miles an hour, it was pretty darn close to 100 miles an hour. So I don't know what this is going to turn out to be, who this couple is, obviously it's a couple with some problems going on. You don't drive like that, but and they sure scared the living daylights out of a whole nation and maybe the world for a while because of the way it happened.
It was a couple, and it was a Bentley.
Yeah, it was a Bentley. That's right. I was going to say that. It was a beautiful automobile, a big automobile, heavy. Think about it. I mean, it would seem to me it'd be even harder to get a heavy Bentley in the air than a light automobile. But when it hit the barrier, it must have been going at an extraordinary speed, and it was just a Bentley. I see. They're all excited that it was a Bentley. By the way, that was the 97th Thanksgiving parade. I don't know what number the one in Miracle on 34th Street was, but that was the 97th parade. I had 8 of them when I was mayor. I enjoyed them very much while I was the mayor. A warning in today's New York Post, which is a holiday edition. So I hope you all get a copy of Miranda Devine's column, which is one of her extraordinary ones, if they're not all extraordinary. She's a fabulous investigative reporter. And what it does is explain to you maybe some of the things that you don't, we're not able to put together completely. For years, we've tried to figure out why would Prince Obama be so friendly to Iran? Why would he send them multi-millions of dollars? When you read this article, you'll see that the Obama-Biden administrations is infiltrated not only with Chinese spies, which they apparently really have paid for, but it's infiltrated with Iranian spies as well. In fact, the people working on some of the key agreements were operatives of Iran, including Ariana Tabai, who is still working there. She's the chief of staff to the Pentagon Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations, Christopher Meyer. And she recently became a U.S. Reserve naval officer and had took a course on any number of our very sensitive intelligence assets, with a history of being born in Iran and extremely close to an Iranian who's under investigation and suspended for giving up classified information, not moving it around Mar-a-Lago without any impact, but giving it away. His name is Robert Malley. And if you talk to intelligence experts, they will tell you for some time he's been a well-known Iranian spy that despite enormous entreaties to the idiot in chief, no one removed him. And now he's suspended. Tabai is one of his disciples. There are several more in the Biden administration there right now as we're having sensitive discussions with Iran, and as Iran is bombing our military in Syria and in Iraq, 58 times, 1 dead, about 25 with serious traumatic brain injuries. And we're tolerating Iranian spies and trying to figure out how to give them billions more dollars to the billions we've already given them, which means we're funding the attack, the attacks on us. Now, does this make any sense at all? Did it ever make any sense to give any money to Iran? Don't you have to be a traitor to do that? Am I a simpleton? Don't you have to be a traitor to do that? The country is a theocracy. It's a dictatorship and a theocracy. It has I don't know what they call it. It isn't a constitution. It's some kind of one of their religious things. And they are dedicated to the destruction of the state of Israel and to the big devil America. That's us. And we give them money? I don't know. Did we give Hitler money? I don't think we did. Did we give the Soviet Union? Well, maybe under Roosevelt, we gave the Soviet Union money because he had a bunch of communist spies with him, and even Truman to some extent. But after we found that out, I mean, we didn't directly, on purpose, give money to the Soviets, did we? Or the Nazis? What the hell are we giving money to Iran for? You know, when they found out we were sending them the $6 billion, they held a parade, a protest, or whatever in Tehran, and they yelled out, "Death to Israel, death to America." I don't know how much money we have to give to them so they won't yell "Death to America." I mean, $6 billion is apparently not enough. Now, did that $6 billion go through? Well, Qatar is holding it. So what do you think? And explain to me exactly why we let Qatar allow the heads of Hamas, who have killed lots of Israelis and lots of Americans, why do we allow them to have sanctuary there? Aren't they an ally of ours? And these people who kill us and our best friends have sanctuary there and are able to keep themselves living in the styles of being worth $12 and $15 billion. Now we talk about the ceasefire and the release of people. You know, one of the people that led the effort to slaughter the Israelis, rape the women, and kill the children was released by the Israelis. When the Israelis released, 1,500 Hamas killers for one Israeli? Now, it's far be it from me to criticize Israel, because I love Israel. And also far be it for me to second guess a decision where you're going to get 50 people released who would otherwise probably die. But if you are the leader of a country, sometimes you've got to cry about the decisions you make because they're so damn difficult. And it is a legitimate question to ask. To save those 50, will you kill 1,000? Meaning, will this just increase the number of hostages taken? Number two is the 4-day delay, which you know is going to get extended. Going to give Hamas enough time to reorganize, so that when you go back to revive the attack, you're going to lose a lot more people than you would have lost if you just continued. Well, there's no question you are going to lose more people. So there is a calculation to be made here that you're saving 50, but you're killing don't tell me none, or you don't get to work for my military. Give me a number and explain to me how we're going to protect against that. And explain to me how many times do I do this? How many times do I delay so they can improve their ability to kill us in order to get people back? I mean, they got a lot to go. 50, they've got 250 we know about. That's 200 more. And they've got thousands that they're not letting out. When we say there are 10 to 20 Americans that we know about, first of all, we don't even know about it. When Sullivan was asked a week ago, do you know if our people are alive? He said he didn't. What kind of a jackass is he? Well, he's not really a jackass. He's a crook. This is what happens when you put crooks in charge. Well, I will give you some good news. First, let me tell you about polls here. Let me see that. Polls as we go into the holiday weekend, the average for all of the polls that they do in Real Clear Politics is 47.2% right now for Trump, 44.9% for Biden. I don't remember Trump leading in that too many times ever. The Emerson poll, just head-to-head, has a 47-44 Trump lead. But here is why Biden is being given pills to sleep if they tell him about this, and he can understand it. His lead among Hispanics, which was a month ago or a little 14%, is now only 3%. He has lost another 15% of blacks. And of course, he's lost white vote. He's losing in every demographic, including young people. Among women, he's only ahead by 1%. Women don't like Trump, right? Remember? He's ahead by only 1%. Down from like 15 the last time. Right now, the worst poll for Trump with black voters is 22%. That's the worst poll. He gets anything like 15%, and of course, the election's over. So things don't look too good for Biden, and it isn't going to be Biden. I'd like to put in the real name when we get it and see what happens. But the last time we put the real name in, he was beating him by more than Biden. That's the heir apparent who has been approved by Xi Jinping, Comrade Newsom, who gave such a nice parade for Xi that he's very appreciative of all those communist flags, outnumbering American flags that are allowed to be burned in San Francisco by a lot. I mean, it was clear that San Francisco seems to really be much more happy as a Chinese communist city. Please tell me that's not true, people in San Francisco. Please tell me that you found that disgusting to see the flag of a murderous government, to see people cheering, to see Chinese people cheering the man who has killed more Chinese people than any living human being. Do you see the evil nature of that? You have these poor people in the street, these Chinese people, waving Chinese communist flags, cheering this man that goes by that has killed more of their people than any living human being. This is the successor of Mao. It would be as if Hitler had a successor and they cheered him going through Tel Aviv. What is wrong with us? Do we have no common sense? Or have we lost our soul? I don't know. I hope it's the first. You can fix that better. I hope we have no common sense. Well, let's talk about football, because Thanksgiving is a day of football. And there is a game, and I know everybody likes to talk about the Dallas Cowboy game because they're America's team. But I go way back. I go back before there was a Dallas Cowboys. They're like a new team. And I remember the Detroit Lions when they were the only team who played on Thanksgiving. And I also remember the period of time when I became a football fan, when the game was the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions in Detroit. And that game goes back how far, Ted?
Well, of course.
So Detroit started playing 1934.
So they started playing their Thanksgiving game in 34. They have played it every year except for the Second World War, about a 5-year period during the Second World War. There was a period of time for a long time where they played exclusively the Packers, right?
Yeah, this and you told me this. I didn't actually know this.
And you come from Michigan and are a Packer fan.
I come from the Upper Peninsula of
but
Michigan.
I do know a little about sports, don't I?
You do. And from 1951 to 1963, it was Green Bay at Detroit. And you had told me you remember growing up watching that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll be honest, when you first said it, I said, well, it's not every year, Mayor, right? I'm thinking, well, I know the Packers, so it's not every year, Mayor. It's not every year. And then I did the research. And sure enough, you must have been from when you were 7 years old to when you were 18.
Well, right into the Lombardi era.
Or no. Yeah, 7 years old until you were 19. They played right into the Lombardi era.
And by the time you get to the end of the series, it's the great Packer teams, you know, the Paul Hornings and the Bart Starrs, and of course the greatest football coach ever.
We both agree with that.
The greatest football coach in the history of the world, Vince Lombardi.
Not even close.
Who should have been the coach of the Giants, except the Giants made a terrible mistake. They turned down Landry, and you don't know that the next year after they didn't hire Vince and they let Vince go to Green Bay, Landry comes to them and says, "There's this new team called the Cowboys, and they want me, but if I'm in line to be head coach, I'll stay." Boom, they let him go. And now we got the two greatest coaches of the next 20 years coaching for other teams, Lombardi and Landry. When I used to watch them play against each other, you know, the Cowboys and the Packers had some of the greatest games ever played.
Ice Bowl.
The Ice Bowl and the year before that.
And the year before that, Dallas.
And that determined the team that played in the first Super Bowl for the NFL. And I'm saying to myself, both these guys were our coaches at one time. They both coached for the Giants.
Wow.
They coached for the Giants when they won the playoffs and when they won the NFL championship, which was the world championship, in 56, when they wiped out the Bears in 56. That was the Frank Gifford Giants.
That's right.
But my favorite memory, of course, being a Giant fan, was a second-year player making a play that rarely do you see a linebacker make. Now, this player wasn't just a linebacker. He was a linebacker that was probably a better pass rusher than any of the pass rushers in the entire NFL. His strength was magnificent. He also could outrun almost anyone in the secondary. So now think about that. He could play down lineman on defense. He can play linebacker. He could play safety. So he basically single-handedly won this Thanksgiving game against the Packers. It's LT.
Lions.
Lawrence
Detroit.
Taylor.
Detroit. It was in Detroit, 1982.
Detroit. I'm sorry. I'm Detroit. And the thing about LT that you got, you if you'd like to fight with me, call up, write, or whatever. This was the greatest defensive player to ever play the game of football, Lawrence Taylor. Watch this play. That's Harry Carson, Hall of Fame middle linebacker. You see how big that man is? The Giant is having trouble keeping up with him. Number 24. 97-yard touchdown interception by Lawrence Taylor. He also had the strength of, but look at him go. That's Harry Carson, number 53, middle linebacker. He throws it to the side. He picks it off. It isn't the pickoff. It's the run. Look at these guys trying to catch him. Nobody can catch him. I'm telling you, his blocker can't catch up with him. That was the second or third of three scores that he created in that game as a defensive player. It was what was the final score?
13-6. At that point, it was 6-6.
It was Lawrence Taylor 13 and the Detroit Lions 6.
That's so funny.
This is when you knew that there was something going to happen with this team, because the guy at middle linebacker, although I can't say he was the best middle linebacker ever, there are several others that are better, is a Hall of Fame middle linebacker. Harry Carson was not only a very skilled athlete, Harry Carson had a big, big brain, and so did LT, by the way. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Our device is something that you can plug into your television, and now you can use your television as a social television type experience. So in the Portal universe, you can watch your favorite content creators' videos, live streams, music. We also have TV subscriptions as well.
TV subscriptions.
You can also
regular channels, all the sports.
Right. You can actually cut your cable from your cable subscription and get QUX TV on our QX TV boxes. And you can pay half the price that you're currently paying for your cable television subscription. And you can get all the best premium TV channels and more. I mean, it's really, there's so much on there, Rudy. I mean, you've seen it.
No, I've seen it and I use it. And it's good. I mean, it's just exactly the same except for half the price. Plus, nobody is finding out what I'm watching, and that's not being reported to anybody.
Right, so you have absolute privacy using this device, which you don't have on other devices out there currently on the market.
This is absolutely great. QUX.TV is how you can find out about it. QUX.TV.
Use promo code RUDY to receive $30 off.
Well, we're back on a Thanksgiving evening of 2023. I hope you all had a beautiful Thanksgiving dinner. Maybe some of you still have leftovers for tonight. I hope you have them for the weekend. That's always one of the great things about Thanksgiving. Somebody makes too much turkey, or unless you had a lot of guests and they ate like the people at Dr. Maria's house. Man.
So good.
Yeah. You know, the dog, Dr. Maria has a dog, and he's a really he's a pit bull, but he's a wonderful pit bull. These poor pit bulls get a terrible reputation. I mean, this is the sweetest. This guy is like about 75 pounds. He barks like crazy when people go by. If you went up to their house to like do bad things, I don't care who you are. You could be the best burglar there ever was. You're going to run a mile when you see this guy. If you had gotten in, however, and you walked into the house, first thing you do is start licking you. And then he won't stop licking you. And he thinks he's a puppy. He's a 75-pound puppy that sits in your lap and wants to be petted. It's a shame what they do to the reputations of these pit bulls, because the pit bull becomes that way because they're trained to be that way. As a breed, they're an English breed when you go back, and they were not trained for that originally. And it's these human animals that make them into killers. And they make them into killers because they do have very, very strong jaws. So they are not particularly hostile dogs by any means. In fact, they're very friendly dogs. And they had a reputation as an early breed of being very good with children. But then because of their jaws, they made them into fighters. And if you make them into a fighter by psychologically destroying them, fine. Unfortunate what you do. But if you treat them like a regular dog and train them to be a regular dog, they're as sweet a dog as my goalie, who was a Labrador Retriever. Those are my favorite dogs, the Labs. I love Labrador Retrievers. And then close behind are the Beagles. If you want to talk about little dog, I love Beagles. I had a good friend who was a Beagle. And I had a good friend who was a Labrador Retriever before goalie. He was a black lab. His name was Jesse. He was a really wonderful dog. Through my life, I've had some close dog friends. In fact, my goalie was my only friend a few times when I was mayor. The whole city was against me, except goalie. He understood. He understood why you had to have work fair. The people that, I don't want to work. And I would say, like my father used to say, my father used to say to me when he'd make me do things I didn't want to do, when you get older, you're going to thank me for this. So I actually went to my old high school. I got all the people together who I was forcing to work, who were in college. Were getting a free college education and were getting welfare. And that really irked me. I said, you got to do something for this. I mean, we don't even grade you in college anymore. But I changed that for a while. I think it changed back.
Oh, sure.
We don't grade you. We don't even teach you. I mean, we teach you Marxism. And at least if we got you to read Marxism, we teach you to read, but we read it to you and tell you what it means. So I said to them, they were all booing me for making them work. And I said, someday you're going to appreciate what I've done for you, because if I can give you the work ethic, I can give you the most important thing I'm capable of giving you. Do you know I've had people in the last maybe 7 or 8 years, including now, come up to me and thank me for what I did and telling me they hated me and disliked me. But I got them to work, and it was the best thing that ever happened. I have to tell you, it doesn't matter what they do to me. That's so rewarding. It's so, it just makes makes the whole thing worth it, no matter what they do to you. And that's right. It's common sense. It's not genius. Giving someone the work ethic is better than putting them on welfare, right? You put them on welfare, you make them dependent. Nobody really wants to be dependent, really. You warp your personality in order to accept it, to live with yourself being dependent. People want to be like my Uncle William was. I'd rather starve than get welfare. Now, that's a little extreme. I'm not sure you want everybody to want to starve rather than get welfare or have their children starve. But there is something to that, right? There is
society for the
pride. It's called pride. It's called pride. It's called dignity. It's called self-respect. The minute you start putting large numbers of people on dependency, you're robbing that. You're taking it away. It's why Democrats don't care about people. They don't love them. You couldn't do this if you loved people. You couldn't do it if you understood people. If you understood humanity, because not all people are, I'm not going to say human, but have the qualities of humanity, or those qualities have been buried and destroyed and have to be brought out. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Well, that's what we're going to do for America as soon as we get it away from these communists. We're going to restore dignity and self-respect. It's there. Among Americans, it's there. I was able to do it in New York, and it wasn't really as hard as you think. It was the strongest, the biggest, the most successful welfare to work program, I think, ever. We can do it. It's not impossible. A lot of these people who are dependent and are in a second and third generation of dependency, they are wishing and hoping for this to happen. They may not even know it. They're just plain depressed. They don't know why they are. That's why they are. Please try to explain this to your friends. It's so important because it's the difference between the two ideologies or parties, and it doesn't have to be. We should have differences in which we agree on American values like we used to. And that's why the Democrat Party has got to be destroyed in the next election. They have to change their name to get rid of the name that has to do with slavery, and in order to not be hypocrites. They can't be. Tonight I'm watching the Dallas game and I'm rooting for the Commanders. What the hell are the Commanders? What happened to the Redskins? Where did they go? And Native Americans didn't want it. It's these communist fools that wanted it in order to make fun of America, in order to demean America. Best thing to teach people is love and respect for their country. And to run a country down with all these petty attacks about things that happened 100, 200 years ago. Of course, you could do that to anybody. And you could do it to anybody much worse than America, because everybody else was worse than America. On all of these things we talk about, everybody else was worse. And that has to be true. Otherwise, they wouldn't have wanted to come here for the last 200 years in the large numbers on which they wanted to come here. And that's common sense. Well, we'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully, you'll have some leftovers for tomorrow. Our show will not be leftovers tomorrow. It'll be a brand new, fresh show telling you the things that you're not being told by the people who are destroying free speech in America. And we will combat it together, and we will win together, because we're going to ask for and we're going to receive the help of God Almighty as we thank him very, very much for allowing us to be Americans, for giving us this Constitution and this great way of life. God bless all of you, and God bless America.